Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to completely flip how you look at cost accounting. We're taking it from a mundane, box-checking compliance exercise and turning it into your business's ultimate strategic weapon. You know, whether you're running a massive manufacturing plan or a specialized consulting firm, getting a master-level grip on these costs is absolutely the secret sauce to sustainable growth.
Before we really dive in, I want you to think about this for a second. Is your best-selling product actually losing you money? I know, it sounds totally impossible, right? But here's the harsh reality. Without incredibly accurate cost data, you might be flying your business completely blind. You could be popping champagne over high sales volumes while quietly bleeding profit out the back door.
So here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, we'll look beyond basic bookkeeping. Then, we'll deconstruct business costs, figure out how to choose your costing method, dive into strategic cost management, and finally, wrap up with the future of costing.
All right, part one, beyond basic bookkeeping.
To really master your costs, we first have to wrap our heads around this massive paradigm shift between mandatory reporting and operational strategy. Think of financial accounting as looking in the rearview mirror. It's mandatory, it's built for external regulators, and it strictly follows rules like GAAP. It just tells you what already happened. But cost accounting? That is your continuous forward-looking radar. You set your own internal rules because your goal isn't to make regulators happy. It's to support internal strategic decisions and ultimately maximize your profitability.
Moving into part two, let's start deconstructing business costs.
If we're going to build a profitable strategy, we have to pull apart the actual anatomy of a business expense. Literally, every product cost in the world is built from three major components. You've got your direct materials, like the wood and nails, and your direct labor, which is the wages for the assembly workers. Those are pretty easy to trace, right? But then there's that third piece, manufacturing overhead. That's where things get really tricky. We're talking factory rent, electricity bills, machine depreciation. You can't just easily staple a fraction of your light bill to a single chair. But if you don't factor it in accurately, your entire pricing strategy is going to fall apart.
Chronologically, these costs follow a very precise physical journey right through the factory. It always starts as raw materials, then as direct labor and overhead are applied, it transforms into work in process, or WIP. Once the item is completed, it hits your finished goods inventory. And finally, when a customer actually buys it, that cost moves out of inventory and becomes your cost of goods sold. Understanding this exact continuous flow is exactly how management tracks where every single dollar is tied up on the factory floor.
Okay, part three, choosing your costing method. Now that we know how costs actually flow, we need a method to the madness to properly assign those really tricky overhead expenses. Let's anchor this abstract idea with a highly practical example. Ask yourself, how do we calculate the exact cost of a single standard office chair? How do we take a whole factory's worth of expenses and distill it down to just one single unit?
Let's say over a single month, a factory spends $120,000 on direct materials, $80,000 on direct labor, and $50,000 on manufacturing overhead. That gives us a total monthly manufacturing cost of $250,000. Now, during that same month, let's say we cranked out 5,000 chairs. By simply dividing our total $250,000 cost by those 5,000 units, we find our base unit cost is exactly $50 per chair. Pretty straightforward, right?
Well, that $50 baseline dictates our final selling price. If management decides they want a 30% profit margin on sales, they don't just, pull a number out of thin air. By taking that precise $50 base unit cost and dividing it by 1 minus 0.30, we hit exactly $71.43. This is the real power of cost accounting. It gives you a rock-solid mathematical baseline for your pricing strategy, instead of just copying your competitors and crossing your fingers.
But wait, what if your business doesn't make identical standard chairs? What if you make complex, custom furniture? Averaging costs across the board like we literally just did will wildly distort your numbers. And that's exactly where activity-based costing, or ABC, comes to the rescue. ABC stops you from misallocating that tricky overhead. Instead of using a single flat rate for everything, it identifies specific activities. Think machine setup hours or quality inspections, and then assigns costs based on exactly how much of that activity a specific custom product actually consumes. Sure, it takes a bit more work to track, but the accuracy, it's an absolute game changer.
Let's move on to part four, strategic cost management.
Now that we've calculated our true costs, we need to elevate from just crunching numbers to making high-level, impactful decisions. And honestly, a massive part of this is knowing what data to completely ignore.
When making a critical choice, like whether to manufacture a component in-house or outsource it entirely, you must focus strictly on relevant costs. These are your future cash outflows and avoidable incremental expenses. On the flip side, you have to fiercely ignore irrelevant costs. If you've already spent $1 million on a machine, well, that's a sunk historical cost. Letting sunk costs influence your strategy is without a doubt one of the most fatal business traps you can fall into.
To really master your operations, you need to implement a suite of cost control techniques. First, establish standard costs before production even begins, so you have a solid budget baseline. Next up, regularly calculate your variances. That's the difference between what you planned to spend and what you actually spend. If there's an unfavorable variance, management can dig right in to find the root cause. You should also employ lean cost management to ruthlessly eliminate non-value-added activities. And finally, try implementing target costing. This is where you start with the market price, subtract your desired profit, and then basically force your engineering team to design the product to meet that exact cost constraint.
And that brings us to part 5, the future of costing. As we look forward, modern technology and global awareness are rapidly evolving this entire discipline. Today's cost accounting extends way beyond the four walls of the factory floor. We're now looking at life cycle costing, which tracks expenses all the way from initial R&D to eventual product disposal. We've got quality costing, proving that investing heavily in upfront prevention is mathematically way cheaper than dealing with catastrophic external product recalls. And crucially, environmental costing is now capturing the very real financial impact of carbon emissions, water usage, and recycling. And the tools we use to track all of this, they have completely revolutionized the field. We are no longer sitting around waiting for static end-of-month spreadsheets. We're talking enterprise resource planning systems, Internet of Things sensors bolted directly onto the manufacturing line, and AI predictive analytics automating routine processes. They are feeding us continuous, real-time data that enables lightning-fast management decisions. The data today is just faster, richer, and more actionable than it has ever been.
So I want to leave you with the challenge regarding how you currently view your operations. How will you leverage real-time cost data to uncover the hidden profits in your business tomorrow? Because at the end of the day, cost accounting isn't just about recording what you spent. It's about illuminating the path forward. Mastering your costs is the ultimate key to outmaneuvering your competitors, maximizing efficiency, and securing sustainable, long-term growth. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go take a really close look at your own numbers this week.